how do I treat sugar substitutes in my net carb calculations? Are they all the same?
And I love this question because not all sugar substitutes should be deducted 100% from net carbs, but most of the information out there is just you take total carbs minus fiber minus sugar alcohols, and that's net carbs.
And that can really be a disaster on the keto diet because not all sugar alcohols can be 100% deducted.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So first of all, I just reiterated what net carbohydrates are, but I'm just going to have to say it again. Net carbs is total carbs minus fiber minus sugar alcohols. And so now we're going to break down which ones we should and shouldn't exclude. So
you can deduct, wait, what are we at? Oh, so when we increase glucose and insulin, we shut off fat metabolism or lipolysis, right? So for the best results, we need a little bit of knowledge about the sugar substitutes and how they affect blood glucose and insulin response, because it's not just about the substance or the sweetness. We need to know what it's doing to our blood sugar levels and our insulin levels, which are just as important.
Right, so and this is especially critical if we're dealing with any kind of metabolic disorder, such as diabetes. So we're going to link some studies in the descriptions, in the comments, about sugar substitutes we recommend avoiding, because we are going to go through quite a bit of information here. So first, you can deduct these sugar substitutes 100% from your total carbs.
So erythritol.
Stevia, which stevia is either Reb A or Reb M.
Allulose, which is a rare sugar.
Monk fruit.
And tagatose, also a rare sugar.
So now these next sugar substitutes, you should just discount it about 50%. Now some people are going to say 50 to 75%, but the rule I'd like you to follow here is to always be moderate. So if it's 50 to 75%, go on the lower, just go 50%. It's just kind of a safety net. So we have isomalt,
sorbitol,
and xylitol. Now, a lot of these also cause some digestive discomfort, so they aren't ones you want to eat in big quantities anyhow. And one thing to note with xylitol is it's highly, highly toxic to dogs and cats and other animals as well, even in small quantities. So it can prove fatal. So if you have pets, you may make the decision to not have it in your house at all. Xylitol is especially well known for a lot of bathroom adventures, even at low quantities. So just be careful about that. If you're chewing like a sugar-free gum with xylitol, you're fine. If you're using the xylitol nose spray, you're fine. This is ingesting xylitol in desserts, in a larger quantity.
So the next grouping, you can subtract 0 to 25%. So if you're being very cautious, don't subtract any. And if you feel like you've got a handle on things, you can subtract 25%.
So here we have maltitol.
Right, very, very common in today's sugar-free candies from big producers, right? Your Hershey's,
Russell Stover.
Yeah, like the fake.
Almost every candy, if you go into the sugar-free candy section, almost every candy is going to have maltitol in it.
Right, and you can look and see that that's probably the first ingredient listed.
Now, maltitol does have a glycemic index. It has been proven to raise blood glucose and have an insulin response. So if you have any kind of metabolic disease, you want to get rid of anything with maltitol in it because it could be undermining all the work you're doing.
Right. Splenda, because it contains typically maltodextrin.
And maltodextrin is going to spike your blood glucose and create an insulin response. So you want to avoid anything that's mixed with maltodextrin. And there's even sugar substitutes out there on the shelf mixed with real sugar. So be aware of that.
Just maltodextrin in general, right?
Yeah. And then vegetable glycerin. So vegetable glycerin is an additive in a lot of things, especially syrups and things on the market. And it can actually be rapidly converted to glucose by the liver and the kidneys. So be aware of that.
Another one which we'll talk about is inulin and chicory root.
And this is actually a fiber. Right. But it has a little bit of a sweet taste.
Right. Inulin and chicory root kind of has a special place because it is actually a very healthy prebiotic. So you might be able to tolerate this in small quantities if you're trying to get some prebiotics, but you really need to measure your blood glucose response before you start using it.
Yeah, so it's a good and bad thing, right? A little bit's okay, a lot of it not good. And then IMOs and tapioca fiber. Why don't you talk a little bit about IMOs?
So isomalto-oligosaccharides, this is stuff that you probably would have found in Quest bars.
Well, the original Quest bar recipe. Do you remember, does anybody, comment below, does anybody remember the original Quest bar recipe? The bars were soft.
Yeah, soft and pliable and tasted really, really good. And then all of a sudden one day you went and you picked one up and it was at the store, it was hard as a rock. And that's because they changed, what did they change to at that point?
I believe soluble corn fiber. But their research came out on IMOs. And so the thing is, IMOs were studied in animals first. And animals don't convert IMOs to glucose. They're fine. But when it went into human trials...
Right, so type 1 diabetics were trying this as an alternative sugar and found out that yes, it is spiking insulin and blood sugar because in the brush border of our small intestine, we actually convert this into something that can be converted into sugar. So we are breaking this IMO down, whereas other mammals are not.
So avoid IMOs. So tapioca fiber. So why tapioca fiber? Well, in itself, tapioca fiber is actually okay.
But IMOs can hide behind the name of tapioca fiber. That is allowed by the FDA in labeling regulations. So if you're not really sure if tapioca fiber actually means IMOs, you can either call the company or just avoid the product altogether.
Yeah, so beware of that labeling thing. So we're going to post a couple, or we already did, we posted a couple links for you to save. Ketogenic.com. Those are great resources for learning a little bit more about these fibers. So again, if you're not sure how much to deduct out of total carbs, don't deduct any. If you're like, well, is this one okay? And it's not on the list, maybe proceed with caution until you can find some reputable information.
And you might have to do your own net carb, you're basically having to do your own net carb calculations and not necessarily trusting what is labeled on the package. This is a substitute. This is, a hack for getting it closer to what is actually going to happen in your body. So you are recalculating the net carbs and not trusting what is on the package.
Right. And if you're in doubt, if you're like, well, I've been eating this stuff for years, I've been eating IMOs for years, and I don't think it affects me, I would challenge you to always test your blood sugar. That's going to give you the bottom line. And don't just test it once. You've got to test it with different food combinations. Right? So look for trends, do some testing, treat it as an experiment to see what's happening. And also keep in mind that our blood sugar doesn't always tell the whole story. We have people every month that approach us and say, I thought everything was fine with my blood glucose, my blood sugar levels were great, and then I went and I had an insulin test, and my insulin levels were off the chart. So what's happening there is high levels of insulin are what's driving the blood sugar levels down.
Right. So everybody's ability to produce insulin is different, right? So everybody can produce different quantities. One of the leading factors of type 2 diabetes is for years you will have increased insulin levels and it will keep your blood glucose levels low, and that's why it looks like everything's okay, and then all of a sudden your body just kind of gives it up. It's like, I can't do it anymore. I can't just keep producing this high of quantity of insulin, and then your blood sugar levels start to match what you would expect to see. So high insulin levels could be what's driving, your numbers to a normal range, but that's not necessarily a good thing. One of the reasons that we do the ketogenic diet is because it lowers our overall insulin levels. And that's one of the things that, if you can maintain low insulin levels throughout your life, it increases longevity.